Journal line.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Rangers Journal pre-match for today's friendly against Middlesbrough at Ibrox. Many folk and most of the pod are at the game today, but luckily for me, not everyone is, and joining me to chat about today's news and the game and the interesting lineup that has just come out that I'm sure some of you will already be poring over with much interest is Colin. Welcome, Colin.
Hi, Doug. Good to be with you. I've managed to get all my Saturday morning chores out of the way, so we'll be tuning into Rangers TV. Looking forward to it.
Indeed. How are we doing today?
Yeah, good. Just got the grass done, and the usual Saturday morning chores. So good to get them out of the way, and it's certainly an interesting team selection. So plenty for us to talk about, which is good.
Absolutely, and we will be getting to that. But first of all, we'll touch on today's other main piece of news, which is that Robin Proper has finally been confirmed as having left the club. Rangers put out a tweet earlier on today that said, "We can today confirm the departure of Robin Proper to FC20 for an undisclosed fee. Everyone at Rangers thanks Robin for his contribution in his time at the club and wishes him well for the future." I think that pretty much encapsulates how I'm sure most fans will feel in regards to Proper. The general narrative is obviously, Robin Proper is clearly a decent defender, he's a decent footballer, as many Dutch players are, but I think just not really suited to the sort of more rough and tumble nature of Scottish football. His better performances tended to be in Old Firms and European games, and so overall just wasn't enough of what we needed enough of the time. Is that kind of where you sit with him as well?
Yeah, I think you've summed it up perfectly. I think that's the view of the majority of Rangers fans. Nothing against him personally. I think a lot of the boys, a lot of the guys around the club thought he's a nice guy, good person to have around the dressing room, but ultimately being a nice guy is not good enough to earn you a place at Rangers long term. And he came in with a good reputation. We paid about £1.5 million for him. He was supposed to be, a kind of up and at and kind of centre half, which at times he was, but he did lack a bit of physicality at the same time to deal with the taller strikers that we have to deal with week in, week out. So I think it's a good deal for him heading back to Holland. It seemed to be a bit of a protracted deal, like it's carried on, for a couple of weeks. So it's good to get him out the door, and now obviously frees up some wages for us to hopefully to strengthen in that area again, because we definitely need another centre half in now.
Yes, definitely. I think that's hopefully will perhaps grease the wheels for some of the links, excuse me, that we've had with other players. Just say welcome to everyone in the chat. I'm seeing a lot of the usual names in there, a couple of new ones as well. So thank you for tuning in. Do like and subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed at the moment. There's only one type of fan that watches Rangers content that isn't subscribed, so I don't think you want to be associated with that type of fan. So better subscribe quickly, as it's all the true Rangers fans that do. So make sure you click that button. I was talking with my friend earlier on. He was on his way to the match. He often calls when he's driving to games. And I think Robin Proper kind of joins along a medium to long list of Dutch defenders where things just haven't really worked out. But he did get himself a goal against Celtic, so that's something that we'll be able to look back on fondly. His compatriot Conterman, obviously, very famously, another Dutch defender that didn't get on quite too well, but he has a hell of a goal against Celtic that everyone remembers. Fernando Rickson wasn't so good as a defender, but once we moved him into sort of defensive mid, he really kind of hit his stride at that point. Any other ones that you can think of at all?
No, I think the success we've had with Dutch players have mostly been midfielders and the more attacking players, your De Boers and your Van Bronckhorst, but can't think of any other centre halves or defenders of the. Proper. I mean, like you said yourself, he did have a couple of good games. Good goal against Celtic in the 3-0 win at New Year, and his best performances did come in Europe. Wish him all the best. But I think we are glad to see that he's finally made that move back to Holland.
Yep. I think we're all in agreement with that. So good luck with your season to come, Robin. But as I say, thanks for visiting. I suppose you could include Gio. He was a defender to start off with. So he was
Yeah.
successful. But
Arthur
if you
Newman.
Yep, Arthur Newman, but Paul's just coming there. Well, there
Yeah.
with Newman as well. In the chat, guys, if you can think of any Dutch defenders that have been successful at Rangers, then pop them in the chat. I'd say a prize for the winner, but I don't have anything on me, so just you'll just get to gloat. But yeah, as we carry on, pop some successful Dutch defenders into the chat if you can think of any. Newman is the current front runner, I think.
Definitely.
Okay, so we'll push on to the game. Obviously, the lineup came out just before we went live here, and it is an interesting one. So I do have it up here on the slides that come up. We've got Conterman coming. I don't know if I'd say he was a success, Paul, but he was certainly interesting. The lineup, it is in goal, which is the only position perhaps I can say with any certainty. We have Kelly, what appears to be a back four of Hutton, Fernandez, Rice, you read that right, Bailey Rice, and Jeff Day. And then in some combination, we have Barron, Bashrami, Gassama, Cortez, Gentles, and Dessers. On the subs, we've got Butland Wright, Tavernier, Aarons, Cameron Dowell, Giga, Raskin, Curtis, and Danilo. So, as I said there, Colin, it's a little bit of an interesting one. We were expecting, I think, for a lot of the sort of secondary string to get in this game, resting players obviously for the second leg against Panathinaikos. But as we were discussing just before we came on air, not 100% on the formation, but it does seem like it could be a 4-4-2.
Yeah, well, before we get into the team, I just want to say, are you auditioning for Rangers TV? Because your pronunciation of every single name there was exemplary.
If Rangers want to employ me, then my email address is, I'll put it in.
It was very well done, I must say. Yeah, there's some really interesting things jumping off that team. So I think the first one, and it'll be interesting to hear Russell Martin's thoughts or the story behind it. But no Igaman is an interesting one. Is he been rested for Wednesday? With a view to starting him. Has there been movement with Lille or any other team possibly? I would imagine I don't see Diomande on the team sheet either. Probably been rested. But in terms of the players starting, I think the back four is really interesting. Looking forward to seeing Fernandez. Obviously Hutton at right back, Jeffrey at left back. You mentioned it, Bailey Rice at centre half. Whilst he will give us a bit of balance because he is left-footed, and that might help. Obviously not his natural position, but we had heard rumours that Russell Martin thought he had the physique. He's certainly tall. He's good in the ball. Is this something that he's wanting to look at long term and see if that's a solution, or is it just a result of the fact that we don't have that many centre halves at the club at the moment? So that's an interesting one. Barron's going to have to do a lot of defending in midfield. I think he's going to have to be very switched on with the guys that he's got with him there. Obviously very attacking, Barami, Kasama, Cortes, Gentles and Dessers. I think we had spoken just before we came on, Doug, that Gentles can play a wee bit deeper. He doesn't have to play right up front. So it could very well be Cortes and Kasama off the wings and Gentles in behind Dessers. So again, looking forward to seeing a lot of these guys. It's great to see Kasama in particular getting some minutes hopefully with a view to starting on Wednesday away at Panathinaikos, because I think it would be really, really beneficial for us to have that threat from the start, from the get-go on Wednesday. But anything that jumps out to you?
The big one that I think jumps out mostly because it annoys me is that Cameron isn't starting. I'd have liked to see. I've been vocal in my support of the idea of Cameron as a Rangers player. I think he's one of the most exciting players that was in the league last season, so I was pleased to see us get him. And arguably, for me anyway, more so than Lennon, who everyone was really keen on bringing in. Not Lennon.
Lennon Miller, yeah.
Lennon Miller. That's it. I keep referring to my first name because we're such good pals. Yeah, so a lot of people are really keen on Miller and having him come in, but I've always been a big fan of Cameron. But my worry is that he's the previous regime in every form, at every level of the club. Really, he's the previous regime's purchase, and so my worry is that he's going to fall through the cracks in that fashion. And I do worry, if he can't get into a lineup like this, what does that say for his future potential? Playing him, they could have maybe played the sort of the standard 4-2-3-1. I say if we had Gentles maybe in that sort of 10 kind of position supporting Dessers, to play that with this lineup, you'd be looking at Bajrami being that sort of centre mid. I'm not sure if that's really his game. So like you said, not 100% on how they might line up. But yeah, your point, Rice, is an interesting one. Does that speak to how many centre backs he'll look to bring in if he's looking at Rice being a potential centre back? It's an interesting one. My automatic thought when we first kind of saw that was more that he was just trying it because he likes his defensive mid to sort of drop in occasionally, particularly if your fullbacks have come forward and inverted, then your defensive mid can drop in and make the three when they're sort of passing the ball about and things. So I kind of thought he was just looking at that, but this would suggest something more definitive. We do have a lot of midfield options, so is this a way to get Rice in the team? Like you say, if he's picking out attributes within him that he thinks could be good as a defender, then maybe he's thinking, well, maybe if I look at him as a defender, try him out there. That's a way that gets him more minutes, perhaps, because we are light in the defensive areas. In general, we had the guys on the other day talking about the squad depth. And when I was putting the slide together for that actually really highlighted. I don't think it really hit home to me that when you put together all the defenders that have been told that they can leave, the fact that Suter, we've had offers or potential links for him, and that his contract situation, the fact that he could go, there's only the two defenders left that are like, these guys are definitely here and staying, and one of those is a loan player. So I was kind of like, actually our defense really is quite threadbare. So it is a position that I hope we will see players coming in. Obviously, we've still got the Connor Cody link there, which is one that may come to fruit when he returns from they're on their sort of training camp, I think, still. So when that comes back, maybe we'll see some more of that, but not sure. Scotty's coming in here with Cameron will break his way in eventually, Doug. I hope so, Scotty. That would be quite perfect, but we shall see. So that was the kind of the main thing for me. Obviously, right centre back is the second one. But yeah, just interested to see how we set up if it is a 4-4-2. I thought you made a good point about the fact that if it is a 4-4-2, that's obviously quite different to what we played in that first leg. How important do you think it is, in friendlies and bounce games and things like that, to keep that consistency in terms of the system? Should you be playing something that's more similar to what he's wanting to do day to day, or has he just been forced into it by personnel?
Yeah, I mean, I guess 4-4-2 from a 4-3-3, it's not a huge difference. You're literally talking one player shuffling forward 10 yards and one player shuffling back 10 yards. It's not a huge difference. I think he's spoken about a lot in pre-season about the principles of play, the playing patterns, the passing patterns. I don't, that'll remain the same as it was on Tuesday night, I imagine, and what we've seen in pre-season as well. That's not going to change. But it is, like I say, it could potentially be 4-4-2 with Gentles and Dessers up front. So no, I think it's not too different. Even if it is a 4-4-2, it's not too different from what we've done in pre-season and obviously on Tuesday night against Panathinaikos. But huge day for Jeffy, huge day for Cortez, which I think is good because you don't want these pre-season games, although we've already had a Champions League qualifier, you don't want these pre-season games being flat. And given the team selection, there are so many players in there who have got a point to prove, and we have competition for places, which we haven't always had over recent years, as we all know. So yeah, Scotty made a good point about Cameron there. He will get on at some stage, and he will be one of the guys who will be absolutely desperate to to show Russell Martin and his staff what he can do, which we know. He's obviously a goal scorer from midfield. He can create. So hopefully he'll get his chance. The other thing, just looking at the team selection there when you were talking, Doug, the other interesting aspect is that Kelly's captain, which is obviously quite interesting because we know Tav is the club captain. We've all made our case or said at some stage that we think Raskin is a leader and should be in with a shout. Barron was captain against Club Bruges, which is interesting. And now he's in the starting lineup today and Liam Kelly's captain. So it does kind of suggest there's maybe a bigger or an increased leadership group with 4 or 5 guys, as opposed to maybe in previous seasons where we've had maybe 2 or 3. So Russell Martin obviously just making sure the responsibilities are shared out. And have to say personally, I don't know what your own opinion on it is, but personally, I don't mind that. I think sharing the responsibility across the team is a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good way to reward players as well. I think he kind of hinted at that when he talked about having given it to Barron, that he'd put the work in and training and things as well. So I think for games like this where I don't want to say it doesn't matter, because I'm sure, particularly for someone like Kelly, it will matter a lot. He'll no doubt be absolutely made up to be coming out. I'm not sure if he's captained the club before in any other capacity. So if not, then I'm sure he in particular will be very happy to be doing so. And yeah, like you say, it kind of spreads not only if the leadership group is kind of there in a bigger capacity. It just sort of spreads out. I think the notion that you want to have leaders across the park. One of the big,
Absolutely.
I don't want to say defenses of Tav per se that I've made, but one of the big points that I tend to make when people criticise Tavernier as a captain and talk about, it should be X and it should be Y, is that if these people, X, Y, whoever they may be, if it's, a Raskin, if they're good enough, as people suggest, to be as leaders, they shouldn't need an armband to be able to do it. They should be able to lead regardless. The armband is obviously will obviously be there as a sort of a rank pillar, if you like, if there's a disagreement per se, and has a symbolic reference. But when people talk about leadership and particularly when they refer back to old teams, I often find they're referring to teams where there were leaders all over the place. And I think that ultimately is what really will make the difference. One man can only do so much in either direction, be it pulling the team forward or dragging the team back. One person can only do so much, and I think if you need to have people, as I say, across the pitch that can make the difference. Particularly, I know a lot of people aren't a fan of goalkeepers as captains, and I do feel although I don't necessarily agree that goalkeepers shouldn't be captains, they are kind of obviously stuck to one area of the pitch quite particularly. You're very rarely seeing goalkeepers running up to referees unless it's within their vicinity, sort of thing. So you need other players that can be doing that anyway. But yeah, it is an interesting one to see him kind of spreading that around, and letting other players get that opportunity. Just popping back into the comments where we sitting. We've got AJ here saying, can we count Rickson? He was a right back. We definitely can. I think we said maybe just before you've joined us, you could probably count Rickson in both categories. As a defender, he didn't have the best of times, but once we shuffled him into midfield, he kind of found his stride. So I think he kind of fits in that regard. We've got Derek asking, has Bailey Rice been played in defence before, or is the gaffer just trying him out? He did do it before in one of the other. Was it in the Bruce game, or was it just one of the
Barnsley?
Was it the Barnsley game? He
Yes,
did do it against Barnsley.
The infamous square ball from Fernandes to Rice, which was intercepted and resulted in equaliser. So hopefully we don't see that today.
Indeed. So it does seem to be something that he's trying out, Derek, as an actual thing. And I had assumed, I said a little bit early on, I assumed he'd just popped him in there in the Barnsley game just because of lack of numbers and perhaps as a defensive mid, he might drop into defence at times, and so he just sort of did that. But it would seem that he's definitely trying it as some kind of thing. I can't believe this didn't jump out at me, but Paul Sono Asgard. Yes, 100%, Paul. That is actually quite disappointing. I was hoping to see him at least for maybe a half hour or so to get some minutes in his legs post injury. One would assume he's obviously just not fit, Colin.
Yeah, that's disappointing. I mean, there are a number of things that jump out from that team sheet, a few of which we've spoken about. We hadn't mentioned Asgard. It's a very good point by Paul. That would suggest that he's probably non-contention to get any minutes on Wednesday, I would imagine. So hopefully, like I think it's been said before, it's not a long-term injury, but it could keep him out for a couple of weeks. So yeah, the sooner we get him back fit and firing, the better, because we've said a few times he's been one of the standouts in pre-season from all accounts.
Absolutely. So perhaps, as Colin suggests, maybe we won't be ready for the second leg, or if he is, probably feature off the bench. Hello from Toronto. Hello from Dundee Set. Good to have you watching. I have seen you pop in the comments before, so good to see you coming back. We've got Dado coming in here. Cody's not coming. Fact, his agent is trying to get him good money. He doesn't care about Rangers. Move on from this guy. He's mince. A bit difficult to tell what Dado thinks of Cody there, but do you think you can decode? Is he not a fan?
Yeah, tell us what you really think.
Yeah.
To be honest, I do kind of go along with them in the fact I don't think Cody's one that's going to happen. Just from what we're reading, we've been linked with another player in Holland. Was it Muyamba? Am I pronouncing that right, Doug?
I think it was. Yeah.
Another 6'5", 6.5. Who's only 22. I think the fee was about $500,000. There's quite a few teams after him. I think personally, I'd much rather go for the younger player than go for Connor Cody, who'd be demanding probably north of 30,000 a week, probably 40,000 a week. It's never good when fans of a team are desperate to get rid of a player, and it certainly seems like Leicester fans are quite keen to get rid of him in the same manner as we were quite keen for Robin Propper to move back to Holland. So yeah, I would hope that we'll be looking at a younger profile. So I would go along with the first part of that comment by Dado.
Yes, I don't mean to make fun of you, Dado. I'm only joshing, but I think with Cody, for me, the finance was always the issue as well. That if he was going to be coming in, like you say, he'd probably be on big money, and that would signify he'd probably be a starter. And I'm kind of keen on the idea of us. You're bringing in these younger players that could potentially grow together. We're not going to get that from Jiga. Presumably he'll go back after his loan period, but having brought in Fernandez, like you say, maybe bringing in a couple of other younger or at least mid-20s types to have something that can kind of build forward, because I do think as much as we want to install the transfer model, sprinkled within that. One thing that always kind of irks me about the transfer model discussion, people tend to get a little bit all in, all out with it. Yes, we want to operate a transfer model, and 85 to 90% of the players that we purchase ideally will fit into that. But there also needs to be 10 to 15% of players who will fall into other categories, such as this guy's going to be a squad player. We can pick him up for next to nothing. Your kind of Scott Wright purchases, per se, maybe slightly better, but someone that's going to be a squad player, happy to be a squad player, and we'll just do that. You're going to have one or two, maybe them. You're going to have one or two sort of more desperate-like players who you buy who are older, but you're buying them because they are older and they have experience, and they will come straight into the team and perform and score goals or whatever it might be. So you're going to buy the occasional older player. Rothwell's a good example of that. An older player that's coming in, looks like he's hitting the ground pretty much straight away, and obviously has experience that he can bring alongside some of the younger players. So you're going to have some players that fall into those type of categories as well. Not everyone's going to hit that. So we'll see how we're going. Where are we? I was looking at the chat, scrolling it back down again. Let's see what else have we got going into this lineup. Desser's starting this one. Obviously, he's been a little bit behind. We mentioned Eggman. It is interesting that Eggman's not featured at all. That, as you say, maybe that suggests he's got someone with Lille or maybe Everton. They were obviously getting linked as well. But focusing on who is playing, do you think if Dessers has a blinder today, does that make it more or less likely that he plays in that second leg?
It's certainly an audition for him. It was tough on Tuesday night to ascertain whether Danilo just didn't get enough service, or was he just a wee bit off it? Does he need to do a bit more? I mean, obviously he had a couple of misplaced passes, but at the same time, we need to be giving our strikers more chances. He didn't really get into the game, so Dessers certainly has a chance today to stake a claim for Wednesday night. I would say I don't think Danilo nailed down the spot by any means, but again, we've got competition, so it's good to see. I think. Doug, the other night, just going back to the defence really, very quickly, it was me and you were on with Ryan. He made a really interesting point about the back four on Tuesday night. So you had Tav, who's out of contract next year, Suter, who's out of contract next year, and there's apparent interest in Turkey. You had Gia, who's on loan from Wolves, and you had Max Aarons, who's on loan from Bournemouth. All four of whom may not be at the club next year. And then you look at the back four we have today. Jeffrey, who's our own, who we know has huge potential. He's got a tendency to switch off defensively from time to time. If he can sort that, then we've got an excellent player. Rice, we know, is one of our up and coming academy players. Whether he's a centre half or a midfielder, again, the debate will rage on. Fernandes, we've spent over 3 million, whether it was the whole package with add-ons, whatever it is. It's a huge financial outlay, and we've got Hutton again, who's one of our own academy players. So yeah, really, really big day for these four guys. Looking forward to seeing how they get on, and hopefully they can all stake their claim.
Absolutely. Touching on Hutton there, got Scott here saying the boy Hutton and know nothing about. Well, his full name is Xander Hutton. Xander, I always find is an interesting name. Reminds me of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But yeah, Xander Hutton, as Colin just said, he's one of our youth players, 18 years old. He is a natural right back. He's been here for a while. He has had some appearances before for the first team. But just a handful from my recollection. He's played for the B team, obviously, the majority of the time. I think he's been on the bench for some Europa League games as well. But yeah, that's kind of where he is. He's at the periphery. So again, he's someone who he's kind of the current day Patterson, if you like, but not with the same level of hype. But that's kind of where he is in the squad. He's now the kind of guy behind the guy, or I suppose behind the two guys at the moment, but not behind two guy. That's a totally different thing. So that's Xander Hutton. A little bit of info on him, as I say, Scottish youth player. As it relates, Ryan hit me, did kind of, or that point Ryan made really did kind of strike me. I was just like, oh yeah. And I think it is quite interesting actually. And again, touching on the point I said earlier, where I was looking at the sort of centre back options and going, oh, actually, we could end up with very few. I have come round to. I was looking at kind of obviously right wing and up front as areas where we maybe would be looking to prioritise. But in my mind now, I think centre back is the area I want to prioritise. As it stands, we've got 3 strikers in the building, so they can be prioritised with just as one leaves, we'll bring a new one in. We've got wingers who we're linked with. We did a pod with Scotty last night on Raksaki. I do recommend guys checking that out. We got Nick from the Sheffield United Way in to chat about him. He was on loan there last season, so he gave us loads of stuff to talk about. So do check that out. But is there anyone else you kind of want to touch on at the moment, Colin?
No, just a couple of people just coming in at the end there saying, where is Igaman? They've just tuned in. We don't know. It's going to be really interesting to find out. I don't know if Russell Martin's doing a pre-match interview, probably with Rangers TV. It'll probably come out in the next 15, 20 minutes. But certainly afterwards at the post-match conference, that will be the number one question, I would imagine. Where is Hamza Igaman? Has he just got a wee knock? He looked really sharp on Tuesday night when he came on for a 15-minute cameo. He was obviously involved in the build-up play, which led to us releasing Gassama in the left, and he fired in the second goal. So, he's looking sharp. Is it because there's just so many possibilities. You could talk all day. Is he away? Has there been movement, or is it the fact that Russell Martin might just be resting him for Wednesday? I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to find out. So looking forward to seeing the game. I don't think it's going to be flat. I don't think it's going to be one of these kind of slow-paced pre-season games. Middlesbrough taking, probably worth noting, 8,000 fans up for this game, which I think is excellent. I think that's really going to add to the tempo and the competitive nature of the game, as well as the atmosphere. So really looking forward to the game.
Good stuff. Scott is telling me I'm talking too much, so I'm going to throw it straight back to you with this question. Surprised Robbie Fraser is in the squad?
To be honest, I'm surprised that anybody who's fit's not on the squad, because I don't know. I think for pre-season games we can name up to 12 subs. I don't know how many we've got. Is it 10, 11?
I think we can name as many as you want.
Yeah, I think you can probably name more. So to be honest with you, I'm surprised there's not a couple of other guys, even just younger players listed on the bench there. But as we know, Ben Davis, Ridvan Yilmaz, Josie Cifuentes, the list goes on. These guys are free to leave, and more than that, please leave. Hopefully we can find them a club. Ross McCausland, I think there's been some movement, Doug, on that one with a loan move to join his pals in Cyprus. So hopefully these deals will materialise over the next couple of days, and that, of course, obviously gives a wee bit more breathing space on the wage front, which means we can take in players on loan, or, as you guys were talking about, Rak-Saki last night, which is excellent, by the way. If you haven't seen that, please go and watch it. It's an excellent breakdown of Rak-Saki. I think someone in the comments was talking there about him being too injury prone. Probably a tad too soon to be saying that. I know he was taken off early last night, but hopefully he's okay. But certainly if he's not, then we'll have to move our attentions to somebody else, because we don't want injury prone players at this club. We've had far too many of them over the last few seasons.
Absolutely. That was a point we touched on in the pod last night, so I'll give you one spoiler from it. Nick certainly didn't seem to think he was an injury prone player. So that's a good one. Dado doesn't like Cody, doesn't like Saki. Maybe it's just players with two consonant surnames. I don't know. But is Rak-Saki someone that you're excited about the prospect of having?
Whether it's Rak-Saki or someone that profile, 100%. I cannot recall. Throw it back to yourself in a second, Doug, to answer the question. I can't recall us having a double threat off the wings for a long, long time. We had Cherney last year, but we struggled to find a left winger. 2-3 seasons before that, we had Ryan Kent, but we didn't have a right winger. It's if we could have two wingers in the mold of Gassama, if we can get another Gassama type on the other side, whether it's left or the right, I would imagine Gassama will probably play on the left when he's fit. You've got competition there with Finlay Curtis. If we can get someone like Rak-Saki in, then all of a sudden it's starting to look very exciting, because you put the two of them either side of a Dessers, a Danilo, Igaman, or Turgman, whoever comes in. That then starts to look like a Rangers front three.
Absolutely. Did Kent and I was going to call him Quesadilla. That's completely
Candias?
Completely wrong. Yes, did Kent and Candias overlap it for a season at the beginning?
Potentially. I think Candias was one of the ones who we probably sold a tad too soon, and we struggled to replace him. Don't get me wrong, he wasn't like a flary, lightning quick winger, but he had a numbers. He worked hard, and he was very technically gifted. But it's just felt like we've struggled to fill these wing spots. There's been a lot of, again, we've spoken about this in previous pods over the last 2-3 weeks going through pre-season. Far too often last season we saw what we would call number 10s out wide, which inevitably means that they want to come inside all the time. And it also means that quite often they're not, they don't have the skill set to go past players. They don't have the skill set to go past players and get to the byline. I think you saw from Gassama the other night, I know it was just a 15-minute cameo and we don't want to get too excited too early, but you saw with his goal, he can go inside. But 5 minutes after that, he was beating the man and going to the byline and cutting the ball back with his left foot. So yeah, if we can get two guys either side of our striker who are capable of doing that, it starts to become really exciting. And then it obviously opens up the channels inside for our centre midfielders to bomb on and get inside in the box and be a threat as well. So I think the really exciting thing is, just from Tuesday night and from the players that were being linked with and the players who were already taken in, you can see a plan starting to develop. And it starts to feel a bit like what we had with Gerrard at the start. It won't all be perfect, but at least you can see where we're headed.
I was going to make another two-guy joke there, but I thought I can't make it. I can't make the same joke twice. So I'll resist. I'll resist.
You can save that one for post-match.
Yeah, I've managed to pull up Kent and Candace did overlap. They played 35 times together. Did not join together for a goal at any point, sadly. But I'm sure provided goals for plenty of others. Candace is one people. He was the go-to for a while, where people would say, "Oh, we haven't had a right winger since Candace." But I often found in the same breath, didn't seem to think that much of Candace. They sort of not maybe quite as much as Scott Wright, but kind of put him in the hard-working but no ability kind of category. But I think he did better than people remember. He's got quite good numbers some seasons. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there. But yeah, I think we've covered pretty much everything now. Vinman just tuned in. No Eggman. No, there is not. We hypothesize he may have broke ground with a deal somewhere, perhaps. Otherwise, you'd have thought we would want to continue getting minutes in his legs, but don't know. Maybe it's just resting him. We will need to see. There is, I will point out, there is a video with Russell Martin on Twitter or /X. So maybe he talks about it in that. I'm not sure, that came up as we were online, so I haven't seen it yet. So maybe check that out, see if there's any more news in there. But for now, thank you very much, Colin, for joining me on this pre-match chat.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to the game, and yeah, I'm sure we'll be back afterwards for some more thoughts and hopefully some clarity on the Eggman situation.
Indeed, and clarity on the starting lineup and everything else. But as Colin said, we will both be back after the game to chat about how it has gone and how the players have performed. So do join us after that, and we shall discuss how things went. So thanks for tuning in for now. Remember that every night is a Rangers Journal night, and we'll see you in a wee while. Bye.